What's up, Internet? This is Rambling Josh, and today I want to talk a little bit about Final Fantasy. You may recall that a while back I did a video where I looked back on the history of the Zelda series and said a little bit about each of the games along the way. And I did that because I was looking forward to Skyward Sword. So I figured I would revisit that format and do something similar for Final Fantasy. Because like Skyward Sword, we've got another Final Fantasy game on the horizon too. We've got Final Fantasy XIII-2, which I'm pretty excited about, but I'll get to that at the end. But that's coming out in Japan in a little bit over a month, so it's not going to be too long before we start seeing what this game is really like. Even though in North America we've got to wait about a month and a half more past that, so that kind of sucks, but whatever. So anyways, what I'm going to do is go through all of the main series Final Fantasy games and just kind of talk a little bit about my experience and my opinion on said games. I'm limiting it to the main series games because if I talked about the spin-offs and all those, then I would probably be talking for about 17 years. But anyways, let's get this ball rolling. So first on the docket is, of course, the original Final Fantasy. Now I've never owned a Nintendo, and I've never actually played the original NES version of this game. I do know a friend who owns it, but I don't think I've ever even seen him play it since I met him like way after the NES was in the current thing. So I don't really have a whole lot of experience with the original, but I mean it's one of those games that's being ported and re-released about a million times. So I actually own a couple different versions of the game. I've never played the Game Boy Advance version, but I own the PlayStation, what's it called? Final Fantasy Origins, double disc. Or no, it's a single disc, but it has Final Fantasy 1 and 2 on it. I also own the iOS version of the game. So, originally, of course, I got the PlayStation version first, and I played that a whole bunch. But I eventually ended up just kind of giving up. I can't remember exactly where. I think I was in the volcano. And I ended up giving up just because, for one, I was hopelessly lost. But more importantly, it ended up that my party wasn't very... it wasn't the best party ever. It was good at, like, killing bosses and stuff. Not that the bosses in that game are very hard, but I didn't have a white mage, so my longevity in a dungeon was kind of hard to really pull off. I was using the 8-Bit Theater crew. The 8-Bit Theater is a webcomic which I haven't read for years now. I don't know why, but it's though the 8-Bit Theater is kind of like a webcomic reimagining of the plot of Final Fantasy, which of course is a fairly loose. So there's lots of room for creativity. But anyways, it centers around a fighter, a black mage, a thief, and a red mage, which isn't the best party ever. Not by any stretch of the imagination. So I eventually got the iOS version of the game, and I played through that with a bit more standard party of a fighter, monk, black mage, white mage. I think that's probably about as standard as you can get. But anyways, Final Fantasy 1 is always like a really weird game for me because I always have to give it like massive amounts of respect just because it's kind of the game that started it all. And that's not me claiming that it's like the first RPG ever or anything like that, because that would be a stupid claim. But it's the birthplace of the Final Fantasy series, and if nothing else, I mean, it brought Squaresoft back from the brink, and I mean, they've brought so many good games over the years, even if in recent years their track record has been a little bit spotty. But I mean, I think Final Fantasy, what it does, it does some things really well, like the ability to have whatever party setup you want. I think for such an old game, that's pretty amazing, and it gives the game a lot of replay value as well. If you want to go with crazy parties, then you can do that. I mean, I know there are people out there who've done 4 white mage runs and stuff like that. That's not something I would ever do, but I guess probably my biggest problem with Final Fantasy is playing it as kind of in a more modern age. Is that it's one of those games that suffers a lot of what I like to call old school RPG syndrome, where it's like the plot's really thin, nobody ever really tells you where to go, so you just kind of have to go everywhere and explore on your own. You can't even like talk to NPCs and to get hints and stuff most of the time. The encounter rate is insanely high, and the battles are like needlessly, unfairly difficult. I mean, not so much difficult, but a lot of enemies are just unfair, and it's all kind of the encounter rate and the difficulty, at least, are in the interest of kind of prolonging the game experience, just because it's a Nintendo cartridge, so they can only pack so much into it. So lots of stuff like that, and it kind of dampens the experience a lot, but it's a game that I still kind of enjoy. I can feel like the spirit of the game. It's like the Final Fantasy spirit is there. And actually, on the iOS version, I particularly enjoyed, just because the music was so awesome, having been like uh, rearranged or whatever the term is. I also really enjoyed in that version of the game, which I believe is also present in the PSP version, is there are like bonus dungeons, which I didn't really like the dungeons themselves, but inside them you can fight bosses that are like from other Final Fantasy games. Like I fought, I believe, Cagnazzo, which is one of the four fiends of elements from Final Fantasy IV. I don't know, I always really love when games do stuff like that, just because I mean, I'm a fool for like throwbacks and references to other games, so meh, it gets me. Uh, I guess the other thing I wanted to talk a little bit about was the differences between the different versions of the games. I don't know the games well enough to really kind of speak too much to it, but there are some versions of the game that are really changed up, and a lot of people don't really like that too much. And I do want to say that versions of the game that use a mana pool rather than having like spell charges, I kind of tend to think that's a bad thing. Like, I think it's a better system to use overall, but it's a very different system, and it kind of screws around with the methodology of playing the game. So I will say that. Like I said, I don't know, I can't recall off the top of my head which versions of the game do which, but if it uses a mana pool rather than spell charges, that's bad in my book. So anyways, next on the docket is of course Final Fantasy II. And Final Fantasy II to me is probably the biggest oddball in the series, because it does some really amazing things, and it's really ambitious, but at the same time it feels like a game that I really don't want to play all that much. Just like Final Fantasy 1, I own both the Final Fantasy Origins on the PSX and the iOS versions of the game. And honestly, I can't even remember how far I've gotten in either of them, because my biggest problem with Final Fantasy II is it was always one of those games where it's like, if I pick up the game after like a month, I can never remember where I was, what I had to do, and so like I just stopped playing it. Now, Final Fantasy II, if you aren't aware, is it's actually a surprisingly innovative game for a NES title. Which, I mean, we never got it on the NES, but it was originally released in Japan on the Famicom, which is their name for the NES. So the big thing for this game is your characters don't level up like normal, like other RPGs and other Final Fantasy games. Instead, what you do in combat kind of tailors your stat growth. So if you do a lot of attacking, you're going to gain strength. If you cast a lot of white magic, you're going to gain spirit. If you cast a lot of black magic, you're going to gain intellect. You can level up your proficiency with weapons and specific spells and stuff like that. And that's all really cool. I mean, I love when games do systems like that. But in Final Fantasy II, it just never really felt like it worked out quite right. And I mean, I think they fixed it up a lot for like the iOS version of the game, but like in the PSX version, anyways, it always kind of felt like it wasn't really tuned quite right. Like, I don't know, it's kind of hard to articulate, but it's like I guess it felt like you had to do a lot of grinding to kind of get to the point where you needed to be to actually make it through dungeons and stuff. And even in the iOS version, you know, you could be absolutely slaughtering monsters in dungeons, and then you get to a boss and you get slaughtered in turn. I can recall that happening on a number of occasions, even in the iOS version of the game. And then the problem becomes like the monsters in the dungeon you kill so quickly and they're so easy that you don't really gain any stats from them because the stat growth process is kind of slow. And so the only way to really beat the boss is to use like a very specific strategy, which you can only kind of uncover either by reading a guide or just straight up trial and error. So yeah, I mean, I don't know. It's kind of hard to explain, but like if you've played it, you probably know what I mean. It's like the system is really good in practice, but in play, it doesn't really lend itself to playing the game normally. I guess I would say, like, unless you know exactly what you're doing, or you're going to do a ton of grinding, it's not really. It doesn't work out very well. The game has a few other additions from, like, upgrades from Final Fantasy I. Besides that, though, I mean, there's actually a plot in this game. I mean, there's a continuous plot throughout the game. You talk to people and learn stuff, and the plot actually develops, and you know there are NPCs who change and stuff like that. So there's a lot more kind of direction, I guess. And I mean, I think that's really important for the Final Fantasy series in general. And so they did a lot better job of that in Final Fantasy II. They even have like a password system where people will tell you passwords, and if you tell that password to the right person, it'll like trigger an event and stuff. And a lot of times that's what you have to do to progress the plot. So that's kind of interesting. So on the whole, I mean, I think Final Fantasy II is a superb experiment that just didn't go quite as well as it could have. So Final Fantasy III is next up, and once again, it's not a game that we ever got in the North Americas. It was released on the NES in Japan, and I'm pretty sure the only version we have of it here in North America is on the DS. And I believe the same version of the game is also available on the iOS, but it's the exact same version of the game, just ported. So Final Fantasy III was actually also fairly, what's the word? Innovative. How did I forget that word already? It takes a much more kind of normal approach to how the game plays out, but the biggest difference is that your characters have the ability to change classes, much like Final Fantasy V. And a lot of people don't really realize that that's where the class changing system got its started, from Final Fantasy III. I don't know if other RPGs did something similar before that, but in the Final Fantasy series at least, that's where it got its start. Now, I guess Final Fantasy III, the thing about it is that it kind of suffers from the same thing in Final Fantasy II, in that I tend to have a lot of problem kind of remembering like where I was and what I was doing if I stopped playing for a little while. And maybe that's a problem that you can kind of attribute more to just old school RPGs in general rather than these specific games. But I feel like there's not really a whole lot of, like, even at the best of times, there's not a whole lot of indication of where you actually have to go. I mean, I think they do a lot better job of kind of directing you than the previous games in the series, which is definitely a good thing. But if you accidentally skip through that text, or if you stop playing for a week and you forget what they said, then you're pretty much screwed. As far as the gameplay goes, like, I think it's just fine. I mean, I think it's probably the strongest of the Nintendo era Final Fantasy games. And I mean, I've always personally been a big fan of the class changing mechanic. So I guess there are little problems that kind of plague the game, like technical problems from kind of, I don't want to say growing pains, but like it's the beginning of the class changing system, so you have to expect that they have problems. They're not going to get it right off the bat. So there's stuff here and there that kind of mar the experience a little bit, but on the whole, it's a pretty good game. And they do a pretty good job, I think, of making all the classes fairly useful too, which is more than you can say about some games. So yeah, I mean, it's a pretty good step forward. I mean, the plot's definitely there. It's definitely fairly relevant, more so than probably any other NES RPG. Well, I don't want to say any other, but a lot of other NES RPGs. And the gameplay is pretty solid with the class changing mechanic and all that. And so, with that said, onward to Final Fantasy IV. Now, Final Fantasy IV is always going to be one of my favorites. It's really weird because it's a game that, in a way, almost doesn't even really deserve it. I mean, maybe that's the wrong way of saying it. It's not that it doesn't deserve it, but like, it's kind of surprising. Now, probably the biggest reason for this is Final Fantasy IV is always going to have a special place in my heart, so to speak, because Final Fantasy IV was the very first kind of proper turn-based RPG that I ever played. It's the first like JRPG that I ever played, and it's kind of the game that really kind of got me into the genre and the series in general. And for that, that's kind of a very special thing for me anyway. So I mean, that's always going to kind of color my interpretation of this game. But I mean, on the whole, I mean, they just took the series and just did so much with it. I mean, the only major complaint I can really have about this game is that in terms of gameplay, they took a little bit of a step backwards. I mean, not really insofar as the gameplay itself, because like the battle mechanics and all that are pretty good. I mean, they're definitely, I would say, better than the games that came before it. But if you think about it, it's the only Final Fantasy game in the entire series where there isn't something kind of some special mechanic that you can use to kind of control your party at all. Your characters are all going to, like, they're all exactly the same every single time you play through the game. You don't have any way to like customize them or teach them different abilities or anything like that. And you always have the exact same party at the same at a certain point throughout the storyline. Like you can't control who's in your party at all. So in that regard, I kind of like almost looking at it from looking back at it. It's like a game that it's the only Final Fantasy game in the entire series that doesn't have anything like that, which is really weird because like this is the first Super Nintendo Final Fantasy game, and yet they don't really do anything with it in that regard. But what they didn't do there, they kind of put all their effort into, I don't know, I guess I would say just kind of fleshing out the game world and making it shine and giving it charm. And that's what really gets me about the game to begin with. Like I never really felt like when I'm playing Final Fantasy IV, I never really feel like it's missing anything so far as its gameplay. Like what you have there is kind of sufficient to get you through the story, I guess. And they do change up your party. I wouldn't say super frequently, but fairly often. So I mean, there is that. There is some variance there. So I mean, what this game does right is kind of the feel that you get when you're playing it. Like the story of this game is leaps and bounds above the NES games, and I mean I guess that's to be expected. But like the story and the soundtrack and the characters and their personalities and the NPC development and all that. I mean all of that is just stellar in this game. And I mean even if it's maybe not better than all of the other ones, I mean there's just something about this game that really kind of endears itself to you. At least to me. Maybe it's just because it's where I got my start, but I feel like a lot of other people feel similarly about the game, and I don't think all of them got their start in Final Fantasy IV as well. Now, I have played through the Game Boy Advance version of the game. I didn't do any of the bonus content or anything there. And I also own the Final Fantasy IV Complete collection thing. And I want to say that the Final Fantasy IV Complete version of this game is actually very, very good. They did an excellent job of updating the soundtrack and the graphics and all of that, so that it's all really like exceptionally crisp and clean, but it all looks like intensely familiar to someone who's familiar with this game. The character sprites are a little bit odd just because they made them really tall, and it's kind of offsetting at first, but it is something that you kind of get used to. And I mean everything else in the game looks almost exactly like it did in the SNES version of the game, but if it was like, I don't know, like triple the pixel count or something like that. Maybe it's more than that, maybe it's less than that, I don't know the exact number. And they did a really good job. I really like the post-game content, like the bonus dungeons and stuff, where you have the ability to switch out your party and use different party members that you can use, like Yang and Palom and Forum and Edward and all of them. I really like that. I think it adds a lot of depth to the game, and there's a lot of the post-game content is really pretty good. I don't know what other versions of the game that's actually present in, but yeah, whatever. I've also never played the DS version of the game, and I've always been interested to try that out because I've heard that they do add some more like character customization into that one, and I'm not sure how well it worked out, but it's something I definitely want to check out someday. Anyway, so that's enough about Final Fantasy IV. Final Fantasy V. Now, Final Fantasy V is a really weird. It's a bit of an oddball because, like, I don't know why, but it's another game that was never released here. It was never released outside of Japan until they started doing remakes, and I don't know why, because I don't know why they would choose Final Fantasy I, Final Fantasy IV, and Final Fantasy VI. Like, why skip the games that they did? I don't know. So, I mean, Final Fantasy V is always kind of one that I never really... It's not one that I ever really got, so to speak. Like, I don't have the same memories or the same kind of... It doesn't really feel like it has the same kind of charm as Final Fantasy IV. I mean, it's certainly got, something of a charm on its own, but it's a game that feels a lot more serious. Well, I mean, Final Fantasy IV is pretty serious too, but it's almost like it's almost like it takes itself more serious, aside from comedic parts, and it almost feels like it kind of falls flat because of that. But I mean, on the whole, Final Fantasy V is a good game. I mean, it goes back to the class-changing mechanics, and it takes the system and it improves upon it, and I love the gameplay of this game. I mean, I'm a really big fan of having the ability to change your classes around, and I think they did a pretty good job of implementing that system and improving upon that system in this game. But the actual storyline and all that, it never really kind of got me. It's like I don't really feel that connection to the characters or the storyline, and maybe part of it is just because you're constantly changing, going through different worlds and stuff, which they do some cool stuff with that. There's some pretty cool moments that they create through that. Actually, there are some exceptionally cool moments throughout the game. I mean, anyone who has played through the bridge sequence, I like. If you can say that that is not an awesome moment in video games, then there's something wrong with you. But I don't know. I mean, part of me feels like the game is a little bit too stretched out. Like, there's not enough plot to cover all of the different worlds that you go to, and it didn't need to be quite that long. Maybe I'm wrong. I don't know. I mean, Final Fantasy V is probably one of the games that I have the least experience with. But I mean, that's just kind of how it feels to me. Like, it feels like it has really great intentions, but it's it's kind of weird, really, because it's almost like the flip side of Final Fantasy IV. And at the same time, it's like, normally you say, gameplay is king, and Final Fantasy V is the game that has the gameplay. Final Fantasy IV is the game that has the story, and Final Fantasy IV is the one that I always enjoyed more, and I think that's probably the way a lot of people would feel. It's just kind of an odd observation. But anyways, on to Final Fantasy VI. This is the last SNES era Final Fantasy game, and it shows it. Like, Final Fantasy VI, it's just freaking amazing. I mean, that's all there really is to say about it. It's a lot of people's favorite Final Fantasy, and I have a hard time blaming them. I mean, when you think about this game, I mean, there's just so much meat to it. Like, it's got story, it's got gameplay, the graphics are great, the soundtrack is great, the characters are great, there's a huge cast, and they're all really well fleshed out. They all have, interesting and backstories, and you feel emotionally attached to a lot of them, and they all have interesting personalities and character growth, and the villains are awesome. Obviously, I mean, Kefka is probably one of the best villains of all time. I mean, well, people could probably argue that he's not. I personally think that he is. I mean, maybe he's not the best written villain ever, just because his motivations are very cliche and not very logical. But I mean, he's always present, so you always feel like there's some sort of imminent threat. And I mean, he's just freaking insane, and he's just really enjoyable to kind of watch. And he's a really fun villain. He might not be the most serious villain ever, but he's a really good villain. And I mean, I don't know. I mean, what else is there to really say about this game? I mean, the story is epic and huge, and you feel like, you know, you're a part of this world that's kind of changing and evolving in a really big way. And I mean, the gameplay is really freeform. I mean, you can develop your characters in pretty much any way you want if you know how, uh, using the espers. But even if you don't know how, I mean, it's, you can take, you can have basically no idea what you're doing and still be able to beat the game, which I think is a good thing. They have a very good balance that way. I mean, all the characters are different in their gameplay, and I talked about their, their personalities and all that already. There's just a lot of parts of this game where you feel like legitimately attached to the world and the characters. I mean, Final Fantasy VI is probably one of the most epic games ever. Definitely one of the most epic Final Fantasy games, and probably one of the most epic RPGs ever. And I don't know. I mean, even the fact that after the midway point, like you only need what, like 3 characters to actually be able to beat the game, and the cast is what, 13 strong. I think it's 13. So I mean, it's really kind of. I like how they go and kind of switch it to kind of very open and free form after the midway point, and you just kind of have this world that's just open to explore, and there's this kind of intense feeling of like, wow, this world got kind of annihilated. So let's see what everyone's doing. Let's pick up the pieces, motivate everyone to get back on that horse, and go kill Kefka. It's just a great game all around. I mean, there's just no two ways about it. It's probably one of the best. It's kind of weird because like talking about it, I kind of feel like I don't know why I never really placed this game higher on my lists of like favorite games and stuff. Not that I'm one to like make lists like that or really agree with their reasons for existing, but it's weird because Final Fantasy VI is such an amazing game, and like I can say why it is and I can feel why it is, but it's almost like part of me almost feels like it doesn't get as much appreciation as it deserves, like even from myself. It's just kind of an odd observation. Anyways, moving on to Final Fantasy VII. Now, Final Fantasy VII, kind of a contentious topic, really. I mean, a lot of people are always very gaga about Final Fantasy VII, and I feel like Ocarina of Time gets the same thing. It's like a lot of people just kind of blindly say, this is like my favorite game ever. It's the best game ever made. And it's like, no, it isn't. And I feel like the reason for this is a lot of people, it's one of those games, it's like the first game that really kind of entered into the mainstream and drew a lot of people in. So it's almost like it's their version of my Final Fantasy IV. It's like it's their first experience in the genre or whatever. So it's the first game that kind of drew them in. So they almost see it in like a better light than it is. So I mean, I'm not going to be talking about Ocarina of Time anymore at this point, by the way, because I mean, Ocarina of Time is an amazing game, but I think it has the same kind of thing as Final Fantasy VII, where people are like overly gaga about it and overly fanboyish about it. They're great games, but they're not as good as they get credit for. So now, purely talking about Final Fantasy VII from here on. So, Final Fantasy VII is there's a couple sides to it. I mean, on the gameplay side, I've always been a really big fan of the gameplay in Final Fantasy VII because personally, I love the materia system. I mean, I think there are definitely some weaknesses to it. Like, a lot of times, if you know what you're doing, you can get away with only using very minimal materia, and you actually, you know, that's actually a desirable path for a lot of people, just because, you know, they take a lot of time to develop, and you really don't need to develop all the materia, and just equipping materia reduces your strength and all that. But I mean, I love the materia system. I mean, it makes the weapons all feel different. I mean, some weapons, like, you can have a strong weapon that doesn't have many materia slots and stuff like that. And I guess my biggest complaint about the gameplay is that it doesn't really give you much of a way to really like customize your characters at all. I mean, there's materia, sure, but like your stats between the characters don't really vary all that much. I mean, the biggest character that really has much of a difference is Eris, and of course, she kind of dies. But I mean, other than that, I mean, you can take the exact same materia setup and put it on any character, and they'll perform almost identically to anyone else. And so the biggest difference between limit breaks, and when it comes to limit breaks, there are characters who clearly have better limit breaks than other characters. So I kind of dislike that aspect of the game a little bit, but I feel like the gameplay is really good. There's lots of variation. I like all the mini games. I love the materia system. Now, the story. There are parts of it that I love, because, I mean, the world feels really big, and there's lots of exotic locations that are interesting to go to. And there's lots of little things to explore and discover and all that, and there's the soundtrack is awesome and stuff, but story. Oh god, the story. It starts off pretty good. I mean, up until about the end of Disc 1, I really dig the storyline. But there are just so many little moments in this game where it's like, what the hell just happened? That doesn't make any sense whatsoever. And that's kind of the overwhelming kind of trend that I get from when I think about the storyline in this game. I mean, I almost just completely block out the story for the second and third disc in this game because it just makes no sense whatsoever. It's just so, like, the whole game feels like a giant acid trip for the most part, and that doesn't feel good. It's like, it's just confusing, and like, I don't want to be saying like what the hell is going on, but that's the feel that I get from the storyline for a lot of the game. Don't get me wrong, I mean, it's definitely a very good game. I think the gameplay definitely carries it, and the story, there are interesting aspects to it, but at the same time I kind of have a little bit of a hard time really connecting to the story of the game when my character is like, yeah. Let me just say that the Mako River sequence in this game is probably one of my least favorite parts of any game ever. And I'll just leave it at that. So, moving on, Final Fantasy VIII. Now, Final Fantasy VIII has the distinguishing feature of being one of the only Final Fantasy games that I really didn't like all that much. It just seems like it's almost... There just doesn't seem like there's a whole lot to the game for me to really like. I mean, there are a lot of aspects of it that feel like they have potential, but just kind of fall flat. Kind of like Final Fantasy II, except by the PlayStation era, there just really isn't as much excuse. Like, oh, the list of features that are interesting but bad is just like as long as my arm. Like, the enemy, your enemies level up with you. What? I mean, I can see why they would want to do that, but like, that kind of means like you don't want to be high level. Like, how many games are there out there where playing through like a low level challenge run or whatever is actually easier than playing the game normally. It just doesn't make any sense. And of course, because of the way junctions in this game work, that's kind of what really enables it. Because you can find your magics, and even if whether you're level 10 or you're level 90, you can max out your stats all the same because you don't have any stat growth. The only thing that's going to be behind is HP, and HP is one of the easiest stats to max out with junctioning. I mean, I really like the concept of the junction system. I don't like the concept of how you get magic and having like the magic stocks in general. I mean, the way that you actually go about getting the magic stack is actually terrible. It's incredibly tedious, and yeah. I mean, if it was a matter of just drawing out a spell once and then you know the spell, I think that would be kind of cool. But having to draw out 100 charges of the spell, that's just pathetic. I like the way the GFs work. It gives you a lot of ability to kind of customize your party and stuff like that. That's all good, but pretty much everything else about the game is kind of neat idea, but no. I really do like the card game, though. I mean, I've probably spent more time playing the card game than the rest of the game combined. I don't think you should be able to create like the ultimate weapons on disc 1 using the card game, but I think it's really fun. Although I will say that there definitely needs to have those rewards in there for doing the card game. The story of the game, it's really weird because when I think of the game, like, I can't even recall most of the story to this game. It just almost feels like most of it feels like it's just completely superfluous. And I don't know, I mean, none of the characters really feel well, no, that's not true. Some of the characters are likable. Mostly the male characters. Yeah. I don't know. I mean, Final Fantasy VIII on the whole, like I said, it feels like it had a lot of potential. It had a lot of good ideas, but they just didn't work out very well. And but that's kind of what I feel about the game on the whole. Is like, could have been good, but ended up being kind of bad. Anyways, Final Fantasy IX. Now, Final Fantasy IX is a game that's kind of odd in that my opinion of it has kind of fluctuated a lot through the years. Like, when I first played it, it didn't really feel like anything special to me. But going back and looking at it now, like it feels a lot like a better game now. Like it feels like it always felt to me like it did. It really tried to kind of look back to the roots of the Final Fantasy series and get back to those. And when I first played it, I guess I felt like that was kind of lame. It's like they were just ripping off the original Final Fantasies. But now I kind of feel like, yeah, it's got that really kind of classical feel to it. And I mean, even just the kind of quasi-medieval look and feel to the game makes it feel really good to me. I mean, a lot of what I like about Final Fantasy IX is kind of intangible. It's like just kind of the way the game looks and feels. Like it feels like it's a classic. And to me, I mean, that really goes a long way for me these days. I mean, the game does have a pretty good amount going for it. I mean, the mechanically, I mean, it's not super amazing, but it kind of plays it safe almost. Because, I mean, in that regard, I mean, they really messed up in Final Fantasy VIII. So, I mean, I guess it kind of makes sense that they would want to play it safe a little bit. And I'm okay with that. I mean, it's not as interesting, but if Final Fantasy VIII proved anything, it's better by far than being basically a complete failure. So, I mean, the mechanics play out pretty well. I mean, the ability equipping system, it's not super deep, but it's interesting. And one of the things that I actually really liked about this game that I didn't really talk about with the previous ones is that it finally goes back to actually having, a range of equipment that you can equip. And I don't get why games don't do this anymore. Like, I don't want to have just like a weapon and an armor, or like a weapon and an accessory or anything like that. Like, what's the harm in having a full set of equipment? Like, that just feels so much better to me, and I don't get why games don't do that anymore. I mean, you can do so much with the equipment in this game. Like, there are lots of, interesting, accessories, or, this equipment absorbs this element and stuff like that. And it's just interesting to me. And even the way you can take those items and synthesize them and stuff like that. The item system in this game just feels like it really works. Uh, and I guess that kind of goes hands in hand with the fact that your main character is a thief. As far as the story for Final Fantasy IX goes, it's kind of somewhere between Final Fantasy VIII and Final Fantasy VI, which is probably something that could be said for pretty much the entire series, because those are almost like the two extremes of the spectrum. But it's like, there are parts of the game that feel superfluous, and I don't really, like, my memory is kind of blurry, they don't really stand out to me at all, and they just kind of felt like whatever. But at the same time, there are parts of the game that feel really epic, and they really kind of sing true to that kind of classical feel to the game. So, it's kind of hit and miss, I guess. I mean, pretty much the whole ending sequence is just terrible, if you ask me. I mean, especially the final boss, it's just... I'm pretty sure the first time I got there, I pretty much said, what? Like, it just doesn't make any sense. But I mean, I don't know, I mean, the storyline, there are parts of it that are exceptionally kind of endearing. I mean, the scene on the airship with the black waltz, I mean, that's pretty epic. I mean, I don't know. Final Fantasy IX, it just feels like a really solid game that it doesn't really do a whole lot exceptionally well, but on the whole, it's very solid. And the one thing I did want to mention is, I was saying how Final Fantasy VIII's card battle system needed those rewards. Yeah. Final Fantasy IX is kind of proof of that. Like, I guess there's something to be said about a card game that, you don't have to play if you don't want to, but at least give me something for actually playing it, because just giving me more cards, that doesn't make me want to play it. So anyways, on the whole, Final Fantasy IX, solid game, not really exceptional in any way, but all around very enjoyable. Now Final Fantasy X, it is probably my favorite of the main Final Fantasy games. Like I said, this is just the main series. It's really weird because Final Fantasy X gets a lot of flack from a lot of people for a lot of different things. And part of me understands why, and part of me just doesn't really see it. Like, I mean, I guess let me start from the beginning. The gameplay of this game, I always felt, was very solid. There are some problems with it, but it's very solid on the whole. I'm personally an exceptionally large fan of the sphere grid. I love the ability to kind of micromanage each of my characters' growth, even though, for the most part, you don't really get as much. It's almost like the illusion of customization, because for a lot of the game, you don't really have all that much freedom. It's just kind of like, here's a straight path, walk down it for the first 30 hours. And then, once you get out of there, it definitely opens up, but it becomes kind of, okay, well, here's a bunch of other paths, choose one of them to go down. And it's not a whole lot of, I'm going to take this node, and then I'm going to take this node, and then I'm going to take this node. It's more like, I'm going down this path, now I'm going down this path, now I'm going down this path. In that respect, I do want to say that in the international version of the game, they have the Master Sphere Grid, which you can choose the option to use, and that is way better. Like, that's basically what I always wish the Sphere Grid would be. Like, it's exactly what I'd always wish the Sphere Grid was. You just get so much freedom, and it's just so amazing. I love the Master Sphere Grid. And uh, giving you the ability to like customize your characters is definitely very good. And I like the way how I guess it's kind of less true in the Masters version where you have that customization, but in the main version of the game, I like how they kind of give everyone kind of a role, and it's like this is what this person is good at, and there's lots of kind of, oh, there's this enemy, I better switch in, Orin to kill the heavily armored guy, and oh, I better switch in Waka to kill the flyer, and that doesn't really feel like something that's bad to me, because it's like having the ability to switch everyone in on a whim. I always like that because it's not something that ever broke up the flow of battle at all, but it felt like it was something where it's almost more like your group is kind of the sum of all of its parts, not just the three people on the field at current. And I really like that, but it becomes a little bit contrived when you have to switch everyone in just to get experience. That was probably one of the worst decisions that was made in this entire game, if you ask me. Because that is just contrived and annoying as hell. I also kind of feel like the whole system almost kind of loses a little bit of its luster towards the end of the game, because by that point you can pretty much overpower most of the enemy's weaknesses. Like, you have enough accuracy that, you can hit those flyers with Lulu if you want to. I mean, maybe not Lulu, but like Kamari or Orin or something. And I mean, it doesn't matter if this enemy is heavily armored, you can hit him with Tidus and kill him all the same. And on that note, the enemy variety in this game is terrible. I mean, they only have, a dozen different types of enemies, and they remodel each one of them like a dozen times. I mean, like I said, I like the way they have, this enemy is this type of enemy. It has a very specific strength, and you need a specific character to tackle it. But like I said, that kind of goes out the window, and then all you end up having is the same enemy kind of repeated over and over and over and over and over again, and as a result, the random battles really aren't that interesting. It's like, hey look, a new enemy that's exactly the same as the 7 other versions that I fought of it already. And the other problem I have with the gameplay is at the extreme high levels, because eventually it comes to a point where it just doesn't make sense to kind of keep working on all of your characters at all anymore. And it comes down to pick 3 characters, focus on them, and eventually they're all going to be exactly like carbon copies of each other. And that's kind of lame, if you ask me. Like, I guess I feel like they need characters needed more kind of unique abilities, like that are abilities that are unique to each individual character. Because when it comes down to it, the only things that are unique between any of the characters are what their celestial weapons are and what their overdrives are. And that drives everything. And other than that, your characters are going to look exactly the same. Well, not look, but their abilities are going to be completely identical. And that's kind of lame. But I mean, I guess at the same time, that's kind of like extreme endgame, like post-game stuff. So I mean, it's kind of excusable on that level. As far as the story is concerned, there are parts of the story in Final Fantasy X that I absolutely adore, and parts of it that just kind of don't make a whole lot of sense. But the parts that don't make a whole lot of sense are kind of minimal, I guess. For the most part, I always really enjoyed the story of this game. Like it felt like an epic journey, and I think that's part of what my enjoyment of this game really comes from. Is I always felt like Final Fantasy X was a game that was all about exploring this, colorful, exotic world. It's like you get teleported into the world of Spira, and you just kind of explore it with Tidus. You learn everything along with him. It's like you're learning everything there is to learn about Spira, kind of in unison. And that whole feeling of we have this big, interesting world to explore is what really draws me in, because all the locations are interesting and stuff like that. And I don't know. I mean, it's just a world that I felt like that felt kind of deep and intriguing to me, and kind of seeing your characters grow and kind of becoming kind of intertwined with the development of Spira. It all felt really good to me. But anyways, I can't really think of anything else to say about Final Fantasy X. And I also want to talk about Final Fantasy X-2. Now, some people might not consider this like a main series game, but I mean, I think it is. I mean, it's a sequel. It's a direct sequel to a main series game, so how can it not be? But anyways, X-2 is one that I feel like doesn't really get as much respect as it deserves in a lot of ways. I mean, a lot of people look at it as, fan service, or, oh, it's just a bunch of girls messing around or whatever, but it's a game that I think does a lot of things really right. I mean, there are definitely things that it does wrong, but I guess I should kind of start with the gameplay. So, the battle system takes what Final Fantasy X had and kind of makes it more faster paced, which has pluses and minuses. I mean, I really like the battle system in Final Fantasy X because it was fast paced enough, because you're never waiting for someone's action bar to fill up. You always know what the turn order is going to look like, so you can kind of plan things out. But like I said, like you're never waiting, but you have like full strategic control. So it's a very nice kind of meshing there. But Final Fantasy X-2 is more like it's faster paced, which has its own pluses and minuses. It's more like kind of the standard A2B style battle. And you have the ability to switch your character's classes, which, as I've mentioned previously, is something that I really enjoy in a game. And I really like having that option here, and having the ability to kind of level up your proficiency with each class. The one thing that I felt was very much missing in this game, though, is the feeling of your time spent with a particular class, like, actually mattering. Like in Final Fantasy Tactics, as you learn abilities, you can use those abilities no matter what class you are. As you level up, depending on what class you are, you gain stats that are significant to that class. If you're a knight, you gain strength. If you're attack power. If you're a wizard, you gain magic power. If you're a monk, you gain lots of HP or whatever. And especially that stat growth, that's something that's present in pretty much every game with, class changing ever. But, I mean, pretty much every game that ever has class changing has, something that persists from one class to the next. But in X-2, when you change your class, everything that you had, like, everything that you learned in previous classes just goes out the window. Your stats are exactly the same. Like, if you're level 99 Thief, your stats are exactly the same whether you spent the first 98 levels as a warrior or a wizard. Or not a wizard, a black mage. And that kind of troubles me. Especially because you don't have the ability to, like, equip abilities or whatever from other classes. I mean, what you do have is the ability to switch classes on whim in battle, which is good. I mean, that adds to the depth of the battle and makes things more interesting. Although, I'm not really a big fan of the whole, oh, here's your dress sphere or whatever it's called, and you got to move from this point to this point to get stat boosts and stuff like that. That's kind of contrived to me, but there is something to be said. I definitely think there needs to be some impact from your previous classes, and so you have kind of like a progression path from all the way, not like the only thing mattering is where I am now. But there is something to be said about uh, building kind of like a strategy around your party. It's like, well, if I do this with this class and then switch to this class, then I can do this. And so to accomplish that, you have to earn certain abilities for multiple classes. So I mean, there's something to be said for that, but I feel like the system would have been a lot more interesting, especially because the game is so intensely focused on your three characters. I feel like it would have been a lot more interesting if you had more ability to customize those three characters. And as far as the rest of the gameplay goes, I feel like for the most part it works out pretty well. I mean, I'm not a big fan of having like the... Well, no, that's not true at all. I do like having the percent of, percent story completed, because, I mean, I kind of obsess over, getting that percentage up. I'm a little bit of a completionist, but I guess that kind of leads me to the storyline aspect, where, I mean, the whole game is just completely made up. I mean, well, every game is made up, but I mean, they basically just said, we need some fan service. Let's contrive a plot that we can add into Spira. And it's alright. I mean, it's nothing great. And, I mean, I never got the same feeling as I did in Final Fantasy X of, I'm exploring this world. It's more like, here's this world that's already here. Let's go to different hotspots and do stuff. And the other side effect of that is, these places are all almost exactly identical to the last game. Like, there are very few unique locations in this game. So, it doesn't feel interesting to explore it the same way that it did in the first game. Like, I can play Final Fantasy X, 10 times, and even though I know all the locations already, it'll still feel interesting to explore it. But in Final Fantasy X-2, it feels recycled. It's like, this place is exactly the same as it was in the last game, and I know it. Like, it feels like it is. It feels like it hasn't changed. I mean, a lot of the locations have changed, and there's new stuff there and all that, but it feels recycled. And stuff like that is probably the biggest problem with the game. It's like, in a lot of ways, it really does feel like it was just made for fan service, just to get a quick buck or whatever. I mean, it does deserve more respect than that, I think, because on the whole, I mean, it's an enjoyable game. I played through it multiple times. I got 100%. It's a fun game. I mean, it's not gonna, top any lists or anything like that. But I always felt like it was enjoyable, and I mean, in a lot of ways, it's very lighthearted, and there's a certain charm to that I can kind of appreciate. And actually, when it gets down to the more serious stuff, I mean, that's where I kind of feel like the game kind of falls down, because it's almost like this game wasn't made to be serious. It was designed to be a lighthearted game. Now we're skipping 11 because that is an MMO and I never played it and I never will, to Final Fantasy XII. Now, before I really get started, I want to say that my recollection of Final Fantasy XII is not the greatest. I never beat Final Fantasy XII. It's the only main series Final Fantasy game that I have not beaten. And perhaps even worse than that, I played the game for well over 60 hours. And I basically got to the end of the storyline and said, screw it, it's not worth it. I don't know, I mean, Final Fantasy XII is a game that, at the beginning, I absolutely adored. The ability to customize your character's AI, and the way everything is just kind of just flows really, really naturally. You're never really taken out of the action. aside from like the story bits and stuff like that, that all felt really good. But I think pretty much everyone who's ever played this game, by the time you're at the end of the game, it's just completely like, yeah, okay, whatever. Go, my characters, win all the battles for me. I don't have to actually do anything. And it's kind of a weird side effect, really. I mean, you're really kind of encouraged to develop good AI for your characters. And I find it really fun to actually develop those good strategies. But once you're actually putting them in practice, it kind of makes the gameplay kind of boring. And other games that have a similar AI system, like Dragon Age, I mean, they do a good job of kind of making the gameplay still interesting, because they give you your character that you're controlling stuff that you can do. Namely, I guess, that they turn off the AI control for your character. I don't think that's something you could do for Final Fantasy XII, because you have to be going in and out of menus and stuff, and doing that for every single round of combat, which the rounds come pretty quickly. That would be tedious and annoying, but taking away the AI's ability to control the character that you're currently controlling is, I think, a very good thing for making the combat still feel fun and interesting, and obviously that's something that Final Fantasy XII doesn't do. And I think that's probably my biggest problem with the game on a whole. I mean, other than that, I mean, I enjoyed, exploring and doing all of the guild missions and killing all the bounties and stuff like that. I found that all kind of interesting stuff, but at the end of the day, I guess I just never really felt like this game was drawing me in. It never really drew me in enough to really motivate me to keep playing. I mean, I got to, I think, the second last dungeon of the game, and I literally just said, screw it, I'm not playing this anymore. I don't care how close I am to the end. And I tried going back, and I mean, I guess part of it was the dungeon that I was in was pretty confusing, and it was kind of contrived enough that I never really felt compelled to try and figure it out. But yeah, the gameplay of this game, not so good. I also felt like the customization didn't really work out so well. Like, the differences between the different types of armor and the different weapons. I mean, I don't know. I think the differences are there, but they're just not really made very apparent. And the what's it called? The license board just never really felt as important as it should. Stuff like that. I don't know. I mean, it just never really felt like the gameplay was very compelling, aside from building the AIs of your characters, which is something that you basically just do once, and then that goes and makes the rest of the game tedious. Also, the money system in this game is crap. Like, it's just terrible. I'm just gonna leave it at that. I mean, okay, I guess I should talk a bit about the story now, which honestly I can't really say a whole lot about, because the story of Final Fantasy XII always felt kind of almost ephemeral. It's like, unless you pay exceptionally close attention, I always kind of had trouble kind of understanding what was going on, and part of it might have just been because I never really felt compelled to. I never really felt connected to the storyline or anything. I mean, a lot of it felt like it was, overly political, and just, I don't really mind political plots as long as they're interesting. But I guess I just never really felt like I really cared what was going on a whole lot, and I didn't feel connected to the characters. I didn't feel connected to the world, and I guess a lot of the plot just felt kind of aimless to me. It's like, okay, well, the plot directed me to go over here. I don't really know why, but I guess I better go do it. I don't know, maybe that's just me. Maybe it's just a matter of, my kind of general dislike of the game kind of colored my perception of the storyline a little bit, but that's how I felt anyways. After 12 is, of course, 13. Now, 13 is a very strange beast, if you ask me, because well, it's really weird because, like, it's a game that did a lot of things really wrong, but I still enjoyed it. And I think that when it comes down to it, the biggest thing it got right was the battle system, because I love the battle system. I mean, don't get me wrong, there are things that they definitely could have improved upon. I mean, for one, they should not have added in the auto battle function. But I mean, I love how fast paced it is, and I like how overall, I mean, the battle system is actually very strategic, but all of the strategies are actually very simple to execute, and it's a very nice contrast. It's like you feel like a commander, and you can like give orders at, like literally at the touch of a button. So I mean, I don't know. I mean, it's kind of hard to explain, really. I mean, it's just really fast, and I like how it's all cinematic and it looks fancy and stuff like that. And there's like the battle system feels very deep, and I mean, I don't know. I mean, I just really like the battle system in general. It feels fun, and that kind of carries the game in a lot of ways. I think, which it kind of works because you spend so much of the game fighting. But I mean, beyond that, I guess before looking at the story, I should look at some of the other gameplay aspects. So, as far as your characters go, I felt like you didn't. Well, for the most, you didn't really get a lot of customization, which is a problem for me. But at the same time, it felt like each of your characters was kind of different enough that it didn't make as much of a difference. I mean, it always kind of irked me that the way that the Crystarium worked. Is that what it actually is? The Crystarium? I always feel like there's like an N or something in there. But I don't know. Like, if Final Fantasy X's sphere grid gave you the illusion of customization, I mean, the Crystarium is basically just not even pretending that it's there. I mean, you have the ability to choose which roles you want to develop. Whether, I'm leveling up my Ravager role, I'm leveling up my Commando role, I'm leveling up my Medic role. But for most of the game, I mean, unless you're purposely avoiding a lot of battles, you can pretty much keep all of your roles completely maxed out. And so the only decisions that really ends up being there is which one you max out first. I mean, by the end of the game, it becomes, like once you unlock the last levels of the Crystarium, it becomes much more decision driven. But at the end of the day, I mean, you don't have a lot of customization. The weapon and I do like the accessories and weapon system in this game. I explained when I was talking about Final Fantasy IX how games don't have like full equipment lists or anything anymore. One thing that a lot of games are doing nowadays is you'll have one weapon and you'll have a whole bunch of accessories, and I like that system just fine. I do agree that I think accessories tend to be more interesting than like helmets and armor and stuff, because for one, anyone can use them, and for two, a lot of times you can accessories have more, like, you're a lot more free to give accessories like interesting effects and stuff like that. So choosing the right combination of accessories is a lot more interesting than saying, I'm gonna equip the most powerful armor or whatever. But the way you actually level up weapons and accessories, it's an interesting system. I I I kind of like games where you can like level up your weapons and stuff like that. But it felt almost a little bit contrived. It's like I, I, I guess I tend to prefer leveling stuff up by using it rather than just by dumping money into it. But at the same time, I mean, that's pretty much the only thing that money was even good for. But I guess I just feel like you should level stuff up by using it rather than by dumping money into it. And then we come to kind of the big problems with the game, and the fact that the game is very linear and kind of shallow. And I don't say shallow as in like, I mean like the world is kind of shallow, because I mean you're pretty much literally walking straight lines for almost the entire game, and that is not as much of an exaggeration as I would like it to be. I mean, it's a very obvious problem with the game, and I don't know why the hell Square Enix thought, like, why they didn't think this would be a problem, why it didn't occur to them, but it's a huge problem. I mean, I feel like it's a little bit less problematic because the battles are fun, so you know, it kind of makes like dungeon crawling and stuff more interesting. But the having good dungeons and having puzzles and stuff, man, that stuff is so important to an RPG. And you know, if that kind of stuff was in Final Fantasy XIII, you know, this game would be very near like the top of my list of, you know, like favorite games or whatever list you want to think of or whatever. But I mean, the lack of it definitely knocks the game down like several notches. And I mean, there's just not a lot to the game world. I mean, the world is big and colorful and bright and all that. I mean, it looks amazing and it's, you know, intriguing and exotic, and you know, the soundtrack's amazing, and I like all of the locations within the world. I just don't have the ability to interact with it at all. My only interaction with the world is walk in straight line. Sometimes go down a little alcove to find a treasure sphere. I mean, I would love having, you know, multiple paths and people to talk to, and you know, side quests to do, and you get that a little bit towards the end with, of course, the I can't think of what it's called, the big open field place. But I mean, even when you get there, I mean, there's no like NPC interaction or anything like that. It's basically just, you know, get a quest, go kill the guy, get a quest, go kill the guy, get a quest, go kill the guy, and it basically just turns the walk a straight line into. In a lot of ways, it's actually still walk a straight line. It's like you get the quest, look at the map, see where the monster is, walk to the monster. So, I don't know. I mean, the linearity of the game is very well known by now, and I mean, I'm sure I've already talked it to death, but I mean, it's a big problem with the game. It's such a big problem with the game. I think I'm probably more willing to forgive it than a lot of people are, because I mean, I still really like Final Fantasy XIII, and I might even actually, you know, I should play through it again before Final Fantasy XIII-2 comes out, because playing through it, I've wanted to play through the game again recently. I mean, for a while, it's been something that I felt like doing. So I should do that before 13.2 comes out. And the storyline. The story of the game is actually not bad at all. I mean, there are definitely problems with it. I mean, I think it kind of lacked. I felt like they should have had more of a main character. It kind of felt like it was a group effort, which is kind of endearing in its own right, I guess, but none of the characters really felt particularly endearing. Like, I never really connected to them a whole lot in the same way that I tend to connect with main characters. I mean, in a game with the main character, I mean, a lot of the times I feel like, I should, oh, this is my main character. I should give him the most effort. I should pay particular attention to him. And, I mean, not having that, I feel like if one of the characters had been a main character in Final Fantasy XIII, they would have been a little bit more endearing. I mean, I kind of did that a little bit with Lightning. I mean, she's probably my favorite character still. But, I mean, without having a main character, you have to judge each character by their own personality and their own qualities. And that in itself is not a bad thing. But in a game like Final Fantasy XIII, where to me at least, none of the characters were particularly interesting and they're all just kind of there, it ends up meaning that none of the characters I don't really end up caring a whole lot about them. I mean, Saz was good, but not in like I connected to him because like he's the funny man. Like I like hearing him talk because he's funny. He makes me laugh. He's entertaining. But in a lot of ways, I never really felt like I liked a lot of the characters. But on the other hand, there are characters that I just straight up did not like. I mean, Faith and Vanille were just completely obnoxious. I hate them. Like even after they have, supposedly character growth, I still hate them. I mean, growth in this game is kind of minimal. I mean, there's something to be said about kind of following your group of characters along their path of, walking that straight line down the road with them. No. But, like, there's something to be said about having kind of this feeling of kind of being stuck in, like, an unhospitable world where no one likes you, everyone's out to kill you, and you just have to kind of survive from one point to the next. And there's something to that, but at the same time, like, I don't know. It just feels, it adds to the feel of like this world is empty and barren and I'm just walking from one plot point to the next. And, I mean, I don't know. On the whole, I liked the game. It had a lot of good ideas, and a lot of things end up working out very well for it. But there are just some very, very major things that just knock this game way down. And Final Fantasy XIV is another MMO that I'm never going to play, and yeah, let's leave it at that. So instead, we're going to go on and talk about kind of looking forward to Final Fantasy XIII-2. So 13-2 is a game that I'm very excited for. I mean, like I said, I enjoyed 13, and as soon as I heard about 13-2, my first reaction was kind of like, wait, what? You're making a sequel? How does that work? But after I kind of started thinking about it, it occurred to me that if you can take this game and take, the feedback that you got from it and improve the same system, then it could have potential to be really darn good. And I mean, if you think about it, what feedback did people get from Final Fantasy XIII? Oh my god, it's linear! And I mean, that's by far the biggest problem with the game. So if they can fix that, 13-2 could be really good. And I mean, all indications so far are that I think it seems like they have. I mean, I guess I don't know of a whole lot in terms of, what the dungeons and stuff look like, but I mean, it doesn't take much to add, like, branching paths and stuff like that in a dungeon. And I mean, they've said they have towns and NPCs to talk to, and pretty sure they said there are quests and stuff to do, so that's all going to add a lot to the game, I think. They did say that there are like dialogue options and stuff. Yes, dialogue options. Dialogue options and stuff, which don't necessarily like change story paths and stuff, but it's more about like kind of learning about the people and the locations and kind of developing the NPCs and stuff. And I'm fine with that. I think that's actually almost better. So, I mean, in that regard, it seems like it's definitely taken, you know, the one shining force of feedback that the entire world gave about the original and kind of taken it to heart. There are a couple other gameplay things that they're adding in. One of, what's it called, the Historia Crux, where you get to like go between time, places in time, and do stuff. I don't think they've really talked a whole lot about what this system is, but it's kind of got me intrigued, if not excited. I mean, systems like this, I think, I mean, time travel is always really intriguing, and it's got a lot of potential. I mean, look at Chrono Trigger. I mean, Chrono Trigger without the time travel would still be amazing, but time travel added a hell of a lot to that game. So, I mean, the ability to go back and forth between times, it could add a lot of depth to the game. There could be a lot of interesting elements to it. The plot's probably going to be confusing as hell, but, you know, whatever. Let's see, what else? There's the ability to recruit enemies as your third-party member, and that's interesting. A little bit of kind of mini Pokemon going on there, which it could be interesting. I'm a little apprehensive about it. If nothing else, though, I think kind of having the right enemy for the right situation and having all these different enemies, if there's enough interesting differences between which enemy you're currently using, I think it could be a good potential. One thing that I don't like, though, is kind of in regards to the pre-order bonuses for the game. One of the bonuses is a monster ally, and I don't know anything about the ally or anything like that, but that's the only thing that's like in game. Well, there's a costume, but that's kind of neither here nor there. That's completely aesthetic. One of the bonuses is a costume, one is an art book, and one is a monster ally. And I feel like the monster ally is the only one that's kind of has something that is actually like connected to the gameplay, and I feel like that shouldn't be there. Because like when I'm playing the game, I don't care. I don't give a damn about the costume. I mean, the art book would be cool, but if I don't have that monster ally, I'm probably going to feel like I'm missing out or something. I don't know. Maybe that's just neither here nor there, and that's kind of a company decision, not really something to do with the game itself, but whatever. The other thing that I kind of want to talk about is, I guess it's called the Moogle cloak or something. First off, I was pretty excited to hear that there are Moogles in this game. I don't know why. I really like Moogles. They're pretty awesome. But there's this thing called the Mog cloak or something like that, and I don't really know exactly how it works, but something like, hearing it described makes it sound like the game is going back to random battles, and it's like when you're walking around, all of a sudden like this, your Moogle cloak will like pop up or something, and you'll have the chance to like, if you hit a button quickly enough, you'll get a preemptive strike or something like that. What? None of that even really matters. It's like you're going back to random battles. I mean, maybe they're not. I don't know, but I mean, it sounds like they are. I mean, at first I thought the Moogle cloak's system sounded interesting because you can. It's like you can use it to like sneak up on your enemies or something like that. But I don't know. I'm very apprehensive. I need to look into it more. But I mean, if they are going back to random battles, then shame on you. Random battles are something that have been done away with for a reason. I mean, some games it still works, but I don't feel like this is one of those games. Like, especially a game like Final Fantasy. If it's anything like Final Fantasy XIII, I mean, I want to be able to wander around and explore the world and get into random battle when I want to. Like, I don't want to have to worry about getting jumped by random enemies when I'm just wandering around the world. Like, Final Fantasy XIII with random battles would have been terrible. I don't know why they would think that's a good idea. So hopefully I'm misinterpreting what they said about it. But on the whole, I mean, Final Fantasy XIII-2, I can't say anything to the story, of course. I mean, it's probably going to be very strange, but I also can't really envision liking Sarah a whole lot, and she's, the main character, but I guess we'll see. But I mean, it seems like they fixed up a lot of the gameplay elements, and they added some interesting stuff, and some stuff I'm a little bit iffy on, but on the whole, I'm very excited about it. I can't wait to play it, and let's hope it's not crap.